2020 was a big year in reading for me when it came to fantasy, sci-fi, and young adults. Not only did I get to read a lot, but there was a lot of new releases that I had been anticipating for a good long while. So that's Rhythm of War, which is the newest Stormlight Archive book by Brandon Sanderson, of course, and then A Sky Beyond the Storm, which was the conclusion to the Ember and the Ashes series by Sept here. There were others as well. This year has some big shoes to fill. What I'm going to do is I'm going to produce 3 videos, this video and 2 others that are detailing some of the big releases that are coming out this year, or at least are scheduled to come out this year. If you follow book releases and authors and things like that, anything can change, and 2020 taught us that for sure. But these are a list of books that are being planned to come out this year. I'm going to do 3 videos. This video is the first one in the series, and it's going to be about the fantasy books that are going to be released this year. And then I'll do a second video that is the science fiction books that are going to come out this year. And then the third video is the young adult books that are going to come out this year that are probably a mixture of fantasy and sci-fi and all of those, but for a younger audience. So those are the 3 videos, beginning with this one, the books on fantasy. The first book is called Hall of Smoke by H.M. Long. It's her very first novel, and it's set to be released January 19th, so right around the corner. And it is a Viking-inspired fantasy where the gods in this world directly influence and interact with their people. And so we follow the story of a young girl named Hessa, who is a priestess, who goes against the wishes of the high priestess, is banished from her people. Soon after, her people are all killed, and so now Hessa has to deal with the fallout of that and of reclaiming her position and relationship with her gods. Next, we have The Black Coast by author Mike Brooks. This is set to be released on February 25th, and it's the first book in a brand new series called The God King Chronicles. It revolves around 2 different cultures and 2 main characters, lead characters from the opposing cultures. The interesting thing here is that they're trying to work with one another to bring peace and tranquility to the different cultures, to the nation at large. And so you don't have this like one side trying to or one individual trying to go against the wishes. They're working together. So from what I've understood, some of the tension and conflict that are typically in some of these fantasy stories isn't present in this one because of that, because the 2 characters are trying to work together or towards a common goal, which is kind of interesting. The other thing that really caught my attention here was the description. Let me just read it to you. The Black Coast is the start of an unmissable series filled with war dragons, armored knights, seafaring raiders, dangerous magic, and crowd-pleasing battle scenes. So that's like just going down the checklist of yes for me, yes for me, yes for me. I'm excited about The Black Coast. And then we have The Conductors by Nicole Glover. This is set to be released March 2nd, and this is her debut novel, at least in fantasy fiction. And this is the first historical fantasy that we have here on this list. And we follow Hetty Rhodes. She is a magic user and a former conductor on the Underground Railroad. And now our book is set in post-Civil War Philadelphia as Hetty is solving crimes there using, I guess, the skills that she learned in the underground and her magic abilities that she has. This sounds very, very intriguing, and I'm always down to have a historical fantasy fiction book as a part of my TBR. And then we have the book called The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. This is set to be released March 23rd, and it is a North African-inspired fantasy about rebellion, espionage, and military might set on the far outreaches of a desert empire. This caught my attention because it has some similarities to The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, which I believe I read last year and truly inspired me. It was a really, really good read. And now this one has some similarities here. So I think there's 2 different POVs, or at least 2 primary characters. One is a cranky princess and the other is a cranky soldier, and the relationship between them in this unfolding story. I'm super excited about The Unbroken. Next up is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, set to be released May 6th. And this is a new epic fantasy series. This is the first book in the series called The Bloodsworn Saga. I am currently reading my first John Gwynne book in Malice, the first book of the Faithful and the Fallen series. And I'm super intrigued in Malice. I am about 250 pages in, and I still don't know yet. It is slow, but the characters are pretty cool, and the world building is immense. And so I'm not yet ready to go into another series of his yet. I need to see if Malice is going to enrapture me, and then I'll read the rest of the series, and then I'll eventually get to this one. But if you're a fan of these epic fantasies, tons of characters that are all unique and different and all have, different things that they're set after and trying to achieve. And if you enjoy some like magic brooding in this underworld and a fantasy that is unlike other fantasy cultures that we're typically used to, with kind of that whole European fantasy type trope, then this might be for you. Or check this out. Inspired by the likes of Beowulf and Ragnarok, filled with monster hunting mercenary bands, dragon proud longships, and creatures that hunt with tooth and claw. Again, I know they write these blurbs to really catch your attention, but if you just put in like magic, dragons, fire, king, queen, assassin, those keywords are going to trigger me in all the right ways. Next up is a book called The Black-Tongued Thief by Christopher Buehlman, set to be released May 27th. And honestly, I don't know too much about this book or this story or this author. But as I was going through these different, trying to figure out books that are coming out this year, so going through different lists and then checking out their Goodreads pages, I saw two authors give raving reviews on this book. One was Robin Hobb and the other is Nicholas Eames, two authors that I respect to the nth degree when it comes to fantasy and literature. And so them saying good things about this book, where it's a hodgepodge group of individuals that are working together across this barren wasteland that has been ravaged by decades-long war with goblins. So it's heavy on the fantasy. I think it's kind of heavy on the humor side of things, and I'm really looking forward to this one. And then I know a lot of people are excited about Jade Legacy. It's the third book in the Greenbone saga, the conclusion to the story by Fonda Lee. And I read the first book, Jade City. You can actually see my full review in the annotation or in the notes below, where I talk about loving the plot. It's Godfather-esque of intergenerational blood feuds, kung fu, and magic. And that really is a good explanation of what it is, but it's so heavy on the politics. And so it's a little bit slower to me. And the few action sequences we get, while they're great, are few and far between. And so I respect this series, but it's not one that I intend on reading. However, many people like that in their fantasy literature. So if you have been following along with this series, I know that you are excited about the release of Jade Legacy. Speaking of conclusions to a series, we have The Fall of Babel, the last one on this list, that is set to be released November 11th by Josiah Bancroft. This is of the books of Babel series that begins with Sinlin Ascends. I've thoroughly enjoyed this series. It could have been on this fantasy list, which it is, or on the sci-fi list, which I might also put it. It's steampunk fantasy, and it's so fun and light, and the characters are so interesting, and the world building is so unique here. I've done a review for Sinlin Ascends, the first book in the series, and you can see that in the annotations or in the notes below as well. But very, very quickly, it's about the Tower of Babel is this ancient construct that has been built, and it's kind of sci-fi-esque. Each level or ringdom has its own character and flaws. And this husband and wife, they're newly married. They get to the Tower of Babel on their honeymoon, and within minutes, Sinlin loses his bride. And so really the rest of the story is him kind of ascending the different ringdoms to try to find and recover his wife while finding out the seedy, dark, dangerous underbelly of this tower. It is an excellent series. I'm really excited about this final book in the series. I really hope that we get it this year. If we don't, I completely understand, but I think he's done and just doing revisions, so we should get it in 2021. If you haven't picked up this series yet, start with Sinlin Ascends and you'll love it. And eventually, you'll be able to read The Fall of Babel. Those are a few of the books that I'm looking out for this year. I'm sure that I've missed some. Please include them in the comments down below. And then also, I am well aware that a lot changes in a year. So some of these books are probably not going to be published this year. And then there's going to be many other books that come out, especially in the later parts of this year, that none of us were expecting. So this list could be a lot longer, but I'm already making 3 videos out of it. So stay tuned for those as well. And as always, thank you so much for watching and clicking like. If you haven't yet, click subscribe, join the Dragon Army, and we'll see you in the next one.